In today's episode, I'm breaking down the reason why most mindset advice just doesn't work. You're told to visualize, to stay positive, to tell yourself that you're worthy. But what they don't tell you is that is all utter nonsense unless you learn this one single underlying principle. And that's how to change your subconscious mind and all of the thoughts and all of the behaviors that are associated to it. So today, I'll show you how to rewire your subconscious mind using my three favorite techniques: meditation, affirmations, and stress-based practices like ice baths, where I'll give you my own personal experience using them consistently over the last 12 months, as well as break down the neuroscience and the physiological changes that take place in the body so you truly understand their power. And to many of you, this might sound a little hippie, a little airy fairy, and 12 months ago, I would have laughed in your face if you told me to meditate. So please just bear with me on this, because the chances are you've tried to change in the past, but the reality is the version you're chasing cannot live in the same mind that you're trying to escape from right now. So please keep this one thing in mind in the back of your head throughout watching the rest of this episode. To achieve things you haven't done before, you must be willing to do things that you haven't done before. It really is that simple. For those of you who are new here, welcome to Built Different, the podcast where I teach you how to rewire your mind to redefine your future. If you've ever felt like success was out of reach, it's probably because no one ever taught you how to take control of your mind. Believe me, I know this feeling all too well. But everything changed when I learned how to shift my mindset, develop true self-discipline, and understand the neuroscience behind how our brains actually operate and function. Over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of working with thousands of coaching clients myself. Between Excel coaching and also founding of the Coach Creator, I've had a front row seat to the psychology, the patterns, and the beliefs that hold people back. Not only have I seen what holds people back, I've seen firsthand the methods that push people forward, the methods that take those who have been stuck for maybe months or even years and finally give them the turning point that they need. And that's exactly what I'm here to teach you, because not all of us are lucky enough to have the right circle of people who are pushing us forward, or even those who are on the same wavelength of thinking as us. But that's absolutely fine. You don't need to have those people around you, because this is where we break down those mental barriers together every single week. So I used to think I was in control. I was very disciplined, I was very focused, and I was always moving forward. And in many areas of my life, that truly was me. But in some situations, no matter how hard I worked, I would still spiral into thinking the worst. My favourite term used to be, but what if? I'd procrastinate on deep work. I'd default to autopilot behaviours, even when deep down, I knew better. It didn't matter how much I read. It didn't matter what goals I set myself. Nothing seemed to work. And then it hit me. You don't rise to the level of your strategy. You fall to the level of your subconscious identity. Until that changes, nothing will work. And I mean nothing. Because your subconscious is essentially your whole computer program. It runs the entire show of your body. So this episode is dedicated to the methods I now absolutely swear by and repeat to this very day, all revolving around one single thing: reprogramming of the subconscious mind, right from the foundations up. Method 1, meditation, slowing your brainwaves to alpha state. If you can't sit alone with your own thoughts, you're not truly in control. Your thoughts are. So let's start with meditation, because for most people, silence is scary. It exposes the noise we've constantly been suppressing. And I know this firsthand, trust me. In my most anxious times last year, I couldn't stand my own company. And I mean I couldn't stand it. I would do anything to escape it. I'd fill every spare minute that I possibly could with some form of noise, whether that was music, just scrolling aimlessly, podcasts, anything to avoid just sitting in my own thoughts, because silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt very confrontational. But on a lighter note, let me share a funny story with you. So after reading Joe Dispenza's book and learning about the power of meditation, I was absolutely all in. I wanted to become an utter master of meditation. But there was one small problem. I couldn't stay awake. And I don't mean once or twice. I mean every single time I went to meditate, 2 minutes in, I was a goner. Anyone who knows me will laugh at this because they know it's so true. I could genuinely sleep on a washing line. Back when I worked in Manchester, I would take the tram home after work, and I'm pretty sure I fell asleep standing up more than once. Well, probably most days. And even to this day, I've not had a single trip to the barbershop in Dubai without waking myself up snoring. So yeah, sitting still, eyes closed, not ideal for me. But that's when I switched things up. I started meditating during low intensity cardio. Hood up, headphones in, sliders on. No distractions, just me on the bike or cross trainer and a guided meditation. It became my ritual, and since then I haven't missed a single day in over 6 months. Now, I'm going to be real with you. At the start, it does feel completely pointless. I would sit there, I would zone out, daydream, and I just end up frustrated. Like, what am I doing? I'm just wasting my time. My mind would wander non-stop. But that's the point. That shows you that you are not in control of your mind. Your thoughts are. And it took me a solid 2 months before anything just clicked. But once it did, it became utterly so addictive. Because meditation started giving me some of my most creative ideas, my best business breakthroughs, a level of emotional clarity that I'd never had before, and moments of deep self-discovery I didn't even know I needed at the time. I remember one breakthrough very vividly, and this is deep, to be fair. I realized that I had a real need for external validation. I just always needed someone else's approval, but I couldn't ever work out why. But during one of my meditations, I had a very vivid breakthrough, and it hit me pretty hard. I was the youngest of 3, and my older siblings, my brother and sister, were always the cool kids, and that's how I always seen them. And as a child, I vividly remember always craving their approval. I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be accepted, noticed, and that pattern actually followed me into adulthood, doing things not because I wanted to, but because of what others would think of me. But I didn't know that until I actually sat long enough to see it. Meditation isn't about escaping, it's about seeing. The word meditate comes from the root meaning to know thyself. It's not about silencing your mind, it's about observing it, becoming aware of your thoughts before they become your behaviors. And that's where the neuroscience comes in. So during meditation, your brain slows from a very fast, high beta wave state into alpha. And alpha is the bridge between your conscious mind and your subconscious programming. It's a state where you're calm, but very alert. You're present, but equally very receptive. And this is where real, lasting change begins, because alpha brainwaves are the access point to the subconscious. It's where reflection replaces reaction, where the internal world becomes somewhat malleable, and where identity shifts can take place. And you might be thinking, why does this matter, Joe? Well, 95% of your thoughts, decisions, and actions are driven by your unconscious patterns in your mind. These patterns were formed by your environment, your upbringing, your past experiences, not your conscious choices of what you think is important. So you won't be able to override them simply by just trying harder. You have to override them by rewiring them. And that's what meditation does. It gives you the ability to rewire. It slows the mind, calms the nervous system, and gives you the space to reprogram from the inside out. You're no longer going to be stuck in survival mode. You're training for a new baseline of clarity and self-control. Lasting change doesn't come from just willpower alone. It comes from changing the operating system from scratch. And if you're wondering where to start, just start very small. 5 to 10 minutes is a really good starting point with a guided meditation. Make sure you have no phone, 0 distractions, and just close your eyes and focus on the breath. Notice the noise in your mind and all of the thoughts that come with it, but don't follow it. Every time your mind wanders, just bring it back to the present. That's where the magic lies, and that's where your mindset shift will begin. Just think of it like training a dog to sit. It's through the repetition that you gain control, and that's how you gain control of your mind. This is ultimate self-mastery when it comes to brain control. Section 2, affirmations. The feeling is the access point. You can't build a new life with old language. So let's talk about affirmations. Affirmations are intentional statements that you repeat to yourself to reinforce a belief or an identity pattern. They're not about hype or empty levels of positivity. They're about creating new neural pathways in your brain by repeating thoughts that you actually want to believe, those of your future self. Most people treat them like a motivational wallpaper, nice words and pretty phrases, pretty cringe when you come to think of it. But affirmations aren't about what you say. They're about what you feel when you say it. It's pairing thought with emotion. And here's the part that you should really pause at. Your subconscious mind never switches off. It's always active, always absorbing, 24 hours a day, non-stop. And honestly, that's kind of scary when you think about it, because it means everything you hear, you think or you say, especially the things you repeat to yourself, gets fed into your internal programming. And this doesn't just start when you become an adult, it starts right at childhood. And that's when your brain operates in a constant, what we call theta brainwave state. It's an even deeper state than alpha. It's the most suggestible state of consciousness where you soak up every belief about your environment without any level of filter or resistance. So if you grew up around chaos, criticism, insecurity, the chances are you absorbed all of that. And here's the catch. You're probably still running those same programs right now without realizing it because you've done nothing to change it. And that's why this matters, because whether you like it or not, you're always programming yourself. The only question is, are you feeding your mind with the thoughts of the future self, or are you staying loyal to the language of your past self? Your subconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to repetition. It responds to emotion. That's why your most painful memories will always be so vivid, because they weren't just processed by your mind and the brain, they were felt in every part of your body through your nervous system. Remember, thoughts are the language of the mind, emotions are the language of the body. So when I do affirmations, I don't just say the words, I feel them, I embody them. I speak as if I'm my future self, who has already believed that they are true, and I've already succeeded in what I want to succeed. So here's how I use them every single day. So when I train, I listen to stuff like Goggins, Jocko, or Eric Thomas. Very discipline heavy, aggressive, motivational, completely direct. And then on dog walks in the morning when I'm walking chai, I'll rotate between empowering or maybe calming tracks or gratitude work, depending on how I feel. And then in moments of stress, I'll speak out things loud that really resonate to me. And right now, like one of my go-to lines is, the discipline you feel today will be the freedom that you feel tomorrow. And I say them out loud every single day. And yeah, all of you picturing me talking to myself on a walk right now, thinking I've absolutely lost the plot and I need locking up. You're probably not wrong, but remember, repetition rewires belief. They feed your subconscious with the thoughts that you want, which is essential because society is constantly feeding it the opposite. Just look around now for 1 second, please. The news, social media, hate comments on posts. It's war, it's recession, burnout, mental health, it's fear, self-doubt, scarcity, on loop every single day. And we're really surprised there's a pandemic of mental health right now, because I'm not now I understand how the brain actually works and how susceptible it is to the information around us. So if you're not actively feeding your subconscious, you're still being programmed just by living in 2025. That's why this is an absolute non-negotiable. So here's what you can do right now after this episode. Find an affirmation track that actually resonates. I'll drop some suggestions below. And say the words. Say them out loud and say them with meaning. Do it every single day, especially on the days that you don't feel like it, and especially when it feels the most cringe. Because the emotion behind the words is what rewires the mind and the body. And you might ask, how do we recreate that emotion? Visualize yourself accomplishing the goal that you've set out. Feel what that version of you would feel like as you accomplish it. And trust me, it will feel very stupid at first. Like my toes used to curl when I heard myself saying it out loud. So I'd put my headphones in. But like, stick with it. Like one day it will all click, and I promise you that. And from that moment on, it becomes effortless and dare I say, even addictive. Section 3, ice baths and stress training for neurological dominance. Discomfort reclaims control from the subconscious. This one thing changed everything for me, not just mentally, but biologically too. Because here is the truth. You can't think your way out of toughness. You have to train your nervous system to stop flinching at every single discomfort. You have to learn to embrace that discomfort. And the psycho in me says, just enjoy it. So when I stepped away from bodybuilding, I started something new. A Saturday running club, 5K on the Palm, every single Saturday morning. And it was followed by an ice bath on the beach. And I'll be honest, it was absolute bliss. I drive home absolutely high on life, loving life. Me being me, I had to understand why. Like, why is this freezing cold water making me feel so good, like I'm on drugs? Because here's what the science says. So cold exposure immediately activates your amygdala, the fear center of the brain. But over time, that stress gets rerouted. You start building control in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and that's your decision-making center. And that shift is everything, because now your body learns the difference between real threat and everyday stresses. That might be like the traffic on the way to work, the argument that you've had with your partner, the mother-in-law that you can't stand, like the little trivial things in life. It makes you stop overreacting to things that don't deserve your power in the first place, because you're training your nervous system to respond, not react. You're rewiring your biology for being calm under chaos as you learn to control the mind and the breath under extreme stress. But that's not all. Cold exposure builds what we call dopamine discipline. The reward isn't like instant, like, scrolling or caffeine. It builds over time. And that trains a level of delayed gratification, which is the foundation of any long-term success. So when I started ice baths, I didn't really care about like the recovery side of things. It wasn't about trends or fads. It was for one reason and one reason only. It was about building neurological dominance, and I got utterly obsessed. So once they got easier, I added breath work to oxygenate the body, control my heart rate, and override panic. And this is a very basic technique you can do if you like cold water therapy. Inhale through the nose for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale through the mouth for 6. And repeat that until you're nice and calm. And this activates the parasympathetic nervous system and puts your body in a natural rest and recovery state. And if you can flip that switch from panic to power in freezing cold water, that is ultimate mind control. Now, I've been doing this for nearly a year now, 3 times per week. So I've switched to Wim Hof breathing, including 90-second breath holds and rapid cycles of breathing to flood my body with oxygen. And I've built up from 5 minutes when I started in 4-degree water to now 40 minutes. But let's be clear, don't try that at home. Like, technically, that's hypothermia. But I didn't do this for the shock factor. I did it to train my nervous system, to build the mind, to build the level of discipline that you really cannot fake. Because every time you step into the cold, what you're doing is you're teaching the mind. You're teaching the mind that I'm in control, not you. So let me ask you a question. Have I convinced you enough yet to get into the cold in nothing but your pants? And if the answer is still no, just start small. 30 seconds in a cold shower. That's all I'm asking. Forget the pain, forget the cold, just focus on your breath. Because if you have mastery over the breath, it's the mastery of the nervous system itself. You're not just building willpower, you're building control, you're building a level of clarity. And I like to think it as one simple thing. It's called brain training in my world. In Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill said, "You will receive not what you ideally wish for, but what you demand with definiteness of purpose." But here's the catch. You can't demand anything from life if your subconscious doesn't believe you're actually worthy of it. And that's the key. That's where I believe most people actually really get stuck. They set goals from a place of conscious desire, but deep down, they don't actually believe that they deserve to reach their goals. Like, they don't really believe they're capable on a deep level. Your goals have got to, and I really can't emphasize this enough, shift from a conscious want to a subconscious knowing, from just a wishful thinking to absolute certainty. And that's where these tools come in for me. Meditation, affirmations, and control, they don't just make you feel better, they rebuild your internal world. They help you believe you're the kind of person who follows through on the goals, the kind of person who earns the success and is not given it. Even if your environment isn't perfect, even if your circle doesn't challenge you and you don't have the best people around you, you still have access to the most powerful tool for identity change: discipline and routine. Because when you show up daily, when you stop negotiating with yourself, it stops being a question of if you'll be successful, and it starts to become a question of when you'll be successful. You let go of control, but in the best possible way. You're no longer going to be obsessing about how or when it happens. You just know. The path might be winding, there might be challenges along the way, but the outcome, it's already decided. And that's exactly where I've landed. After months and months of non-negotiable consistency, it wasn't even about motivation anymore. It just became my identity. That identity is what built Excel Coaching, what created the Coach Creator, and what now fuels everything I share here on Built Different. Like, I genuinely know I can be a success. And I don't say that out of arrogance, but just confidence of the work that I've done. And just to bring this all together, why do these practices actually work? Because they speak the language of your subconscious. It's what your subconscious understands, not logic, not forced level of willpower, but repetition, elevated emotion, and experience. When you meditate, you quieten the noise and create space to observe your true patterns. When you affirmate, you inject emotion into new beliefs until they start to feel real. When you expose yourself to controlled stress, like ice baths, you retrain your nervous system to follow you and not follow fear. These aren't hacks by any means. They're science-backed daily reps that recode who you are at the very deepest level. So I've got a challenge for you this week to wrap up. Meditate for 10 minutes, no phone, no noise, just you and your mind. Remember to focus on your breath and keep bringing yourself back to the present. Choose 3 affirmations and speak them, feel them, repeat them every day until they become natural, and repeat them with conviction. Finish your cold shower, breathe through it, don't flinch, and train your nervous system to follow you, not you follow it. Most people won't do this, not because it doesn't work, but because it's hard, because it's boring, because it requires consistency that most people aren't used to giving. But that's exactly why it works, because when you do things daily, and I mean every single day without fail, especially on the days that you don't feel like it, something deeper happens, way beyond the surface. You stop negotiating, you stop just reacting, and you start becoming the person that your goals require you to be. Routine rewires identity, discipline sharpens your belief, and the longer you stay in the work, the louder your subconscious starts to listen. So if you're ready to break the cycle, just start here. Stay with it and watch the person that you become. And remember, if you rewire your mind, you redefine your future. Because trust me, you are built different. You just need to believe it. Peace out, Joe.